So anytime you start talking to somebody about climate change, people are immediately, one side or the other, or both, are going to shut down because I think it's because a lot of us don't understand it. Even those people who like to go around and say they understand the science and they understand what scientists believe, as soon as you start talking, and it's true not just about climate change, it's very true about any policy in America, that when you start digging into the details about what somebody believes, especially the people that are the most passionate, because they tend to latch on to an opinion from somebody they agree with and not necessarily research it on their own. Well, you talk to somebody about climate change, and what they're going to tell you is 97% of climate scientists agree. Well, first of all, the number, the 97%, that's actually controversial. But if you dig into it, I've dug into it, and the 97% do agree on this one point: the Earth is getting warmer, and human beings are largely to blame for most of the heating within the last 50 years. Okay? That's what they're saying, the 97% believe. Okay? It's important to get that right, because anytime you have a conversation with somebody about this and they talk about what needs to be done or how terrible the consequences are going to be or something like that, they like to throw out that the science is settled or that scientists agree or something like that, and they do, but they do not agree that the oceans are going to rise 6 feet, and they do not agree that the consequences are going to be dire and there's going to be massive droughts. The truth is, nobody knows what's going to happen. There's never been a period in Earth's entire geological history where the climate was not changing. So when you talk about the temperature, it's either going up or down. There's been a steady upward curve, that there is a trend. I mean, but especially when you start talking about what scientists believe. You can go to the NASA homepage right now, and they have a section dedicated to climate science. And once you go under there, they've collected the released statements from these organizations that climate scientists are a part of. You know, the National Organization of Climate Scientists, or you can go through and look at their statements, and you can tell just by reading it. I mean, it's a politician level wording, where you can tell it's been reviewed and it's been been under scrutiny, and it's been approved through God knows how many levels for them to be able to release it. Now, once you realize that, go through and read the exact wording on their statements, okay? Because they agree that the Earth is getting warmer, and some of them, maybe most of them, agree that human beings are the primary cause. Beyond that, there's no consensus, okay? And this is important to understand, because I do believe we should listen to scientists when it comes to science. But what we shouldn't do is use their conclusions to sensationalize a problem, because we could end up spending time and money and national effort on an area that's just not that important yet. Okay? So what I think we should do about climate change is I believe that the government should have a vested interest in the market by creating consumer demand in areas that have a public benefit. Okay? Let me tell you what I mean by that. Right now, a lot of the incentives that are given to consumers for the renewables and stuff come from the tax breaks that are given to the corporations that are making these things, and the incentives that are provided to any company that they're all so that on the shelf it's still not cheaper. Do you see what I'm getting at? When you go to Walmart or you go to Lowe's, what opened my eyes to this was when I started looking at putting solar panels on my house. And because if it's going to be a long-term house, I wouldn't mind having solar panels, so I could be a little independent for the energy. If you start looking into it, it's insanely expensive to put these things on your house. And it's true that you can claim a lot of it in taxes, but like a lot of Americans, I don't have a lot of money in savings, and a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. That's not something that the consumer demand is going to fix. Okay? I think the government has a vested interest in putting those tax breaks and those incentives down on the shelf for consumers, so that when you walk into Lowe's and you try to compare a solar powered attic fan to an electricity powered attic fan, you know, that the solar powered will be the cheaper option. And this is, I'm simplifying a lot, because some of these technologies that we're referring to as renewable, they're not. I mean, once you start digging into how the technology is being created for the renewables, the ultimate source of it is still fossil fuels. They're still burning oil to create this or burning oil to create that. So the net effect for the environment is the same. So, I mean, there's more that we need to look into than that. But if we want to create innovation, and if we want to drive consumers toward a product or an industry that has a good for society, we shouldn't be trying to incentivize it at the business level. Maybe enough to get those businesses built, but anywhere that the government creates demand by making the option more available to consumers, supply will follow demand. The businesses will get into that industry, and then that demand will increase innovation, because those prices are going to need to come down so they can make more money. All you have to do is look at instead of trying to make capitalism work at the very top, we should be trying to make sure that down at where the consumers are spending money, that's where the benefit for society is coming from. Okay? So that's what I think we should do about climate change. We should work within capitalism. Right now, the renewable industry is the technology just isn't where it needs to be. And anybody that thinks it is, I need you to look into it, because you're wrong. Okay? The technology is just not there yet. And when we get there, it's not going to be because people ran out of fossil fuels. If we wait that long, it's going to be too late. Which is also the other part of this that nobody really thinks about. It's not just about climate change. We know fossil fuels are a finite resource. It will run out someday. So you combine the fact that we know that this fuel is going to run out with this fuel might be bad for our environment, and it probably is. You combine those two things together, it's pretty obvious where the good of society is needed right now. Okay? So you obviously don't want to you can't collapse the economy. You can't cut off fuel. But you can start to create the demand in an area that you would like to see innovation. Not at the business level, not at the corporation level, but at the consumer level.